Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami, tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Adinādana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Kāmesu miccācara veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Suramīra majjapamādagṭhāna veramani sikkhapadam Itipiso bhagavā araham samma sambuddho viඤ්ඤාචරණ සම්පන්නෝ සුගතෝ ලෝකවිදු අනුත්තරෝ පුරිස ධම්මසාරති සත්තා දේව මනුස්සානම් බුද්ධෝ භගවාති ස්වාක්ඛාතෝ භගවතා ධම්මෝ සන්දිට්ඨිකෝ අකාලිකෝ ඒහි පස්සිකෝ ඕපනයිකෝ පච්චත්තං වේදිතම්මෝ සුපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ උජුපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ ඥායපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ සාමීචි පටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක යතිදං චත්තාරි පුරිස යුගානි අට්ඨ පුරිස පුංගලා ඒස භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ ආහුනේයෝ පාහුනේයෝ ලක්ඛිනේයෝ Let's take a couple of moments to relax our body and calm the mind. Making yourself very comfortable and relaxed. Feeling the presence of yourself in this peaceful atmosphere. Releasing any tension and negative energies from your body. As you take a few deep inhalations and exhalations, some mindful, gentle breaths. Experiencing each breath throughout the body. And you may bring your total attention to your body and mind, to your inner experience. And being very friendly to yourself and being very gentle to yourself. You may observe each and every single incoming and outgoing breath, mindfully, relaxing your body and calming the mind with each breath, letting go of all the thoughts, memories and mental images from the mind, gently allowing yourself to be here and now, in the present moment. So it is very essential that uh, we maintain a very peaceful mind, relaxed mind to study the Dhamma, right? Yes. So then we can easily and mindfully analyze the Dhamma and understand the true meaning of it. So that's why we spend a couple of minutes trying to relax our body and calm the mind. So with that, let's start our Sutta discussion tonight. So I selected this very interesting discourse, Ogha Tarana Sutta, crossing the flood. This discourse comes in the Samyutta Nikaya. In the Samyutta Nikaya, we always find very short discourses. As we know, in Digha Nikaya, long length discourses, and in Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourses, but in Samyutta Nikaya, it is the short discourses. But they are very meaningful, very deep sometimes. You know, we can find a very interesting, a lot of Dhamma. So, Samyutta Nikaya is divided into different sections. One is Devata Samyutta, that is where different gods, deities came to the Buddha with very interesting questions, very practical questions. So Buddha answered these interesting questions. So we can find this kind of dialogues in between the Buddha and the divine beings. And there's one whole section called Vedana Samyutta. That section mainly talks about the feelings, sensation, very profound, very deep analysis in that topic. So like that we can see these sections are divided into different sections with different themes, different topics. So this particular discourse comes in the Devata Samyutta because one deity approaching the Buddha asked this important question from him. So this is how it starts. When the Buddha was residing at Jetavana in Savatnura in Savatthi, one night a deity approached the enlightened one and asked how he managed to cross the flood. And then, without drowning, the Buddha answers was simple and direct. I crossed the flood without staying still and with no exertion. So this is how we can see how short this discourse is. So that's all about the deity's question, and Buddha gave a very short answer. But there are a lot to learn in that short dialogue. Okay, so let's talk about the topic, the title of the discourse. It is the Ogha Tarana. Ogha is the flood. We know flood is a powerful force actually. This is the simple meaning. You may think about a tsunami, right? How powerful that force is, right? We cannot control, no one can control that force. But whatever gets into that, it washes away, drifts away, right? So that is very dangerous, very powerful. So that is the meaning of Ogha, not just the flood actually. We have to understand the powerful force actually, the energy. So that is the Ogha. The word Tarana means to cross, to cross the flood. So that is the meaning of the title. And then, what is exactly the meaning of that question even? You know, it's a very interesting example, you know, as we can think about the Dhamma practice, this spiritual path. If you consider that to a flood or a river even, how to cross that, right? If you are to think about how we interact with this river, as different individuals, uh, sometimes they have very different experiences with this river, with this flood. Even though they are supposed to cross the flood or the river, different people maintain different attitudes towards the river, towards crossing. Uh, some people just come to the shore or to the bank of the river and they don't even step on it, step in the river. And they sometimes just talk about it, just talk about the river, how deep it could be, how shallow it could be, how dangerous it could be, even how far it is to cross, to reach the other end. So like that, even some people can research, even write books and give lectures, even teach about it, and they don't cross it, right? They just stay in one side of the river, in the bank of the river. They just interact with the river in that way. And sometimes people, with the intention of crossing over, they enter into the river, and sometimes with fear and anxiety, the fear of unknown, sometimes people get afraid and come back. After short time, after short distance, they get really scared and they come back to the shore. They don't cross. And sometimes people go halfway through and turn back. Only few manage to cross the river. With a lot of effort, a lot of interest, with enough knowledge about the river, crossing over, they manage to skillfully cross this river and come to the end, come to the shore. So we can see in this simile how different individuals interact with this spiritual path, spiritual journey, right? So it's a very good point for us to think about where we are in this story, right? In what stage even we are in. And entire spiritual path, the Buddha's path to liberation, can be explained as it explained in many discourses in the Tripitaka, the Pali Canon. It is exactly like crossing a flood or crossing a river. Very importantly, in many discourses, it is explained how much energy, how much strength, what type of knowledge and skills one needs to have in order to cross this dangerous river. So we may have different thoughts, opinions, ideas, and even experiences in that regard. So this is one of those occasions where Buddha explained crossing this dangerous river or the flood. Okay, and Buddha's answer was very simple. As deity asked how he crossed the flood without drowning. So Buddha answered, I crossed the flood without staying still and with no exertion. What that simply means? These two words we need to understand here, right? Without standing still. So think about crossing a river, right? You come to the water. What happens if you stand still? You drown, right? You begin to drown, and that will be the end. And you cannot stand still in the water. You will drown, and you can get killed, and you can easily die there. And the other word is exertion. So that simply means, of course, you have to maintain some movement in the water, right? It's a very careful practice or careful movement that you need to maintain in order for you to stay on the top of the water, not to drown. But there should be some movements too, otherwise there's no uh, any progress in the crossing, right? So you have to see that yourself being moved forward, right? So exertion simply means that you do not struggle unnecessarily. That is the Buddha's meaning there. That means you don't struggle too much. That is the meaning. This can be easily understood when you think about swimming in the water, right? What if you swim so fast, like becoming very restless even, you know, getting tired? What will happen? Hmm? Yeah, you can drown, and sometimes you can get cramps even. That can be very painful. It has happened to me. There was a small lake in my village back in Sri Lanka. I remember that. Sometimes your legs can get cramps. It can be very painful. You cannot even move. So that can be easily uh, um, lead you to drown too, and possibly can die right there. And if there's no one to save you, it can be very dangerous. So that is the point here. The meaning of the word he used, the exertion, is not to struggle too much. Mm. So these words can be like opposite, right? Without standing still, without moving, you will drown. And if you struggle too much, that is also not being helpful. So it itself can be a huge distraction for you, not to cross the flood. Mm. So that is giving us some sort of idea what type of effort, what type of energy, what type of movement that we need to maintain in this practice, in this spiritual path. It is simply explaining us to know the balance, to know the limit even, right? So, of course, the standing still can mean, in terms of our practice, not to put any effort, right? Not to try at all, not to practice anything like that. To stand still can mean that. And at the same time, to struggle too much can be like if you practice the Dhamma or try to do these good things without knowing your limitations, without knowing your strengths, you know, without knowing your necessary environment even, this is very important because sometimes people get into many problems, confusions even, practicing too much. Practicing too much means uh, if they understand this Dhamma to be very important, it can be the ultimate for them, and they disregard the other important things in their everyday life. Mm. So, with that neglect, they get into troubles, right? Like, suppose as you are a lay person, right? Household person, you have other obligations, responsibilities. You may have kids, you have to go to work, right? You should have enough sleep, right? You should exercise. There are things you need to take care of. So you should pay attention to them too. But if you get the priority only to your practice without taking care of any of these things as a layperson, uh, you're going to be in trouble, right? So our practice, how much we practice, can depend on these different circumstances. So we have to be very smart in that. We have seen some people, so then they really get fed up with the path, with the Dhamma. This is spiritual practice because they think that it happened only because of the Dhamma, the teachings. So they put the blame on the practice or the teacher, maybe even, right? But the problem is with the individual, not knowing the limitations, not knowing the proper way, not knowing the balance to maintain. So this is a very important message. So this is what Buddha directly explains here. He did not stop at one place, he did not stand still, and he did not even struggle too much. So he knew the proper limit in this spiritual path. So the example is very clear, right? In the water, when you are to cross a river or a flood, these two conditions are to be maintained, right? So that is exactly what it explains. And when you think about the flood or the river, especially in the Dhamma, the Sansaric journey, right? This existence is explained as an ocean. In Sinhala we call Sansara Sagara, right? Existence just as an ocean. When I was thinking about that example, actually, this metaphoric example, what does this mean? Sansara to be an ocean. If you have to think about, if someone drops you in the ocean, like you are right in the middle of the ocean, how would you feel? Right? Can you imagine that? Without being able to see any ground, an island, how dangerous, how painful that kind of experience can be. Not knowing where to go, which direction, right? So that is a total lust. You can be lost in the ocean like that, So existence is also like that, this circle of birth and death, as it is explained in the Dhamma. All living beings are traveling through this existence, not knowing where to go, what to do about it, being conditioned by these different defilements, cravings, anger and delusions, and all these mental impurities, emotions. They are totally lost in this existence, just like being in the middle of the ocean, not knowing where to go, what to do, so that is how it is explained, this sansara, this existence, to be an ocean. So only a few wise people can come to an island, or possibly cross this river, dangerous flood. So that is why the existence is explained as a dangerous place to be in the Dhamma, So, so let's take a look at this explanation about the discourse. But the deity implied in her question was how the Buddha crossed the flood of samsara, the existence. Tathagata's reply addressed the specific context of the deity's question when he said that he crossed the samsara flood without staying still or exerting himself. As his responses literally mean, the Buddha couldn't have crossed the flood if he stood still with the flood, for that he would have got drowned. Similarly, had he exerted himself to keep afloat, he would have drowned anyway due to exhaustion. The Buddha went on to explain his response and preached that the worldly beings are hindered by 4 types of floods, or Ogha, known as floods of sensuality, view, existence, and ignorance. Kama Ogha, Ditthi Ogha, Bhava Ogha, and Avijja Ogha. So this is exactly the most important part of this discourse, this sutra. The word Ogha, as we explained earlier, this dangerous flood, in the Dhamma, Uh, it teaches about there are four types of floods, dangerous rivers to cross. Uh, as we all are the travelers through this existence, all living beings are caught up in these four floods. Okay, so in the Dhamma, these four types of floods are deeply explained, clearly explained and analyzed. So let's take a look at each. The Kama Ogha. The Kama Ogha is the sensuality. You know, the Kama means the sensual pleasure, sensual experience, right? Uh, as it explained in the Abhidhamma, deep analysis of the Dhamma, there are certain thought process, the chittas and chetana, minds and mind objects are explained according to the sensual pleasure, the sensual interaction, you know, in the human world, animal kingdom, and divine worlds. So these are the karma worlds. So their main intention is to please their senses, right? Gratify their senses, pleasing their senses through different sensual objects, external objects, eyes, nose, tongue, ears, the body, so on, right? So this is the entire purpose of their life, to please these senses. So this is how we all interact with the external world. So there, we always develop different cravings, attachments, emotional experiences in the sensual process, right? And mainly, if the sensual pleasure to be pleasant, soothing, comfortable, we get attached to them. We get attached to them. And if they are unpleasant, painful, and not comfortable, we are averse to them. We want to get rid of them. We hate them sometimes. So these are the common attitudes towards the sensual pleasure. So if you think about the word Ogha, that powerful force, you know, according to the explanation in the Dhamma, all living beings are caught up in that powerful force of sensuality, craving, desire for this sensual pleasure. As we can see in the world, in society, how people are driven today, right, towards the sensual pleasure in all directions. Wherever you look at, you know, wherever you observe, we can see that how all people, as a powerful force, they are drifted away by the sensual pleasure. It has been a very powerful force in this entire life. So when you think about the total existence, the circle of birth and death, it's a very powerful, dangerous force. If you are to think about, this is the most powerful force actually to control, right? As we can see, as there's no doubt that as the ultimate purpose of this life is to please these senses, they have become our goals in life, right? These things have become the goals of our life, ultimately, you know, to be happy, right? To enjoy whatever we can, you know, however we can, you know, we want to go to the extremes, you know, there are no limits in that direction, right? So that is how it is explained as a powerful force, how we are controlled, how we all are conditioned by this powerful force of sensuality. Being very hard to get rid of, being very hard to control, right? So as we can see, as a result of that process, powerful force, human beings are going through a lot of negativities, right? All the negativities are bound to the sensual experience, sensual world, right? As we can see, the fear, worries, insecurity, doubts, anxiety, stress, and everything is there in the sensual experience. So it is functioning as a very powerful force in our life. Mm. So in the spiritual practice, in the Dhamma practice, this is the most difficult fetter even for us to control, because it has been there for a long, long time in this journey. We have been conditioned to it so much, again and again, again and again, without getting fed up, you know. So that is the Kama Ogha, the flood of sensuality, sensual pleasure. Okay, and the second one is the Ditti Ogha. Dittis are the wrong views, and that is also a powerful force playing a major role in human life and other beings. Sometimes there are different wrong views explained in the Dhamma, right? Like eternalism, that we are going to be there forever, you know. And some people believe that this is the end, there's no rebirth, right? There's no good and bad coming to us as karma. So there are different types of wrong views. It can be different from person to person, religion to religion, culture to culture, right? So there are different types of views. But the danger about these wrong views, when they are very negative, very destructive, they can cause a lot of harm to oneself and the entire world, right? So this is how some people live in this world, how people behave in this society, thinking that no matter what, right? If we can be happy, if we can be successful, no matter what happens to others, right? That's how people enjoy their life sometimes. So these kind of wrong views, are there, and having no any respect for others, having no any human or spiritual values. So they tend to get hold onto these different destructive, negative waves. So they lead their life, right? So then their path can be very painful. Sooner or later, when they are to experience the consequences according to the truth, according to the reality, they are going to suffer. And not only for them, they are causing a lot of harm to the world, to the society as well, right? So the Ditti Yoga can be very dangerous, very powerful. To have a wrong view, they are also very difficult, hard things to get rid of. Just like the sensual pleasure, when they get attached to their opinions, their different views, it's very hard to listen to others, right? You hardly appreciate listening to others, learning from someone, paying attention to what others appreciate and enjoy, and practice even. So that kind of danger is there when we get attached to, when we get hold on to these different views and opinions, So it's a very special thing that we make clear about what we believe, what we appreciate, what we understand to be most important in our life. What will bring us the ultimate happiness? What will be beneficial for others as well, not only us, right? So sometimes people think only about themselves, right? Don't care about others, what is happening to them. So the Ditti Yoga, these wrong views also function as a very powerful force, hard to get rid of, right? So they are drifted away by the force of these wrong views. Okay, that is the second one. And the Bhava Ogha, Bhava is the existence. It is explained in the Dhamma. There are two different aspects to that word, term Bhava. One is the existence. We are attached to different levels of existence. Like, as it is explained in the Dhamma, there are different levels of this existence, right? according to the evolutionary process, we can see that there are different levels, different places that different beings are being born in this existence, right? We can find the hell and heaven, the animal kingdom, the human world, divine world, and the Brahma realm, highly spiritual realm of existence. So there are different levels like that, different dimensions. So when they travel through this existence, different individuals get attached to these different levels, right? Like as human beings, they can have the desire to be born in heavenly realms, right? As they are full of happiness, pleasure, sensual pleasure, as there's no any physical suffering, right? So we can easily get attached to these different levels of existence, right? Existence, a desire for existence means we always have a desire to be a different level, right? As the existence, like to be better. We all want tomorrow to be better than today, right? This week, next week better than this week, right? We all want to have next month better than this month, like that. So it can be similar. Our next life, our rebirth, should be better than this life, like that. So that is the attachment, craving, desire for the existence. Always want to be different, right? There's a tendency in our human mind. We all want to be different, better than this, right? So that is the desire for the existence. And the other meaning of the bhava is actually, it is the notion, it is the perception of self. That is also another meaning of the bhava, right? As we learn in the Dhamma, the special topic of the non-self, reality. There it clearly explains that how in this psychophysical experience, psychophysical process, we all come to feel that there's someone, there's a being, permanent soul existing in this body and mind, right? This is what we call me, I, mine, and myself, right? So we have a very powerful, a huge attachment to our own self identity. And that is also very special meaning of the bhava tanha we call. So then it becomes the desire for the existence of a self, right? So when we identify as a self, we always appreciate being ourselves there, right? So as the root cause of all stress and anxiety, suffering, actually, the self identity is the powerful root, as it explains in the Dhamma. As we are too much attached to our self identity, we always want to protect it. We always want to take care of it. If something happens to it, we easily get distracted by that. That's why even one single word is enough for us to change, right? Get frustrated, get anxious, right? Even one simple word can change us easily. Just like that. Because of that attachment to our self, our ego, we easily become very emotionally distracted by that. When things happen according to our desire, when things happen without our control even, right? That's where we become frustrated, right? When we attach to ourselves, we all want to all other things to happen in our way, right? That's where we have the sense of control, right, over others. So it's functioning, it's happening all over the place in the bottom line, as we can see. If you become very mindful, conscious about this self-identity, how it is manifesting in our life, our attitudes, most importantly in our day-to-day negativities, it is a very important realization. Mm. So we have that powerful attachment to ourselves as a leading, controlling, powerful force. So that is the bhava Ogha. So according to the teachings on dependent origination, bhava is a very special term there, one condition. When we get attached to conditions, that's where the bhava comes to exist. When we find the sensual pleasure, we get attached to them. And that's where we feel the existence of the self. Vedana paccaya tanha, tanha paccaya upadana, upadana paccaya bhava. When there's something to enjoy, we get attached to it. We get hold on to it. So as we get hold on to this body and mind, this sensual experience, that's where the bhava comes into existence. We feel ourselves existing. So in the Dhamma it is explained as an illusion. It is conditioned. It's conditional. So this is how we have this idea of a self-identity. We personalize this experience, which is an illusion. It's a wrong attitude in the Dhamma, causing the whole mass of suffering. So that is the bhava Ogha as a powerful force. And the last, but not the least, the avidya Ogha, avidya. Avidya is what is avidya? Ignorance. Ignorance. Ignorance is explained as not knowing the reality, not knowing the truth, not knowing the Dhamma. Basically, not knowing the Four Noble Truths. Not to know the true meaning of this life and the world, to be the root cause for all these forces, or other plans, because of not having proper knowledge, understanding, deeper wisdom to see through, we easily get caught up in all these ogres, these powerful forces, the ignorance. So these are the four powerful forces of floods explained in the Dhamma. So to cross over these four ogres or the rivers, floods, requires a very special skill, the effort. So this is exactly the focus on this discourse, right? If we go back to those two words, standing still and no exertion. So we need to avoid those two extremes, kind of, so only then, finding the true balance, healthy, peaceful balance within the practice, one can be very successful. So that is to be found within our practice. Even in one single meditation, sitting meditation session, you can see how that type of practice is helpful, right? So in one of the places, Buddha explained this to one musician, who played, suppose a violin, right? So Buddha asked this person, what will happen if you keep these strings very loose? Will it produce harmonious sound, music? He said, no. What if you tighten the strings too much? Will it produce the proper soothing music, sounds? And he said, no. And then there should be a tuning, right? There's a proper tune, proper level, proper tension that you need to maintain in the violin to produce the proper music. So similarly, in our practice also, we need to learn how to maintain that proper level of energy, effort. Uh, so that is the key to the success. So which can be applied even to our daily life also. Mm. It can be equally applied to all our life endeavors, every single aspect, you know, to maintain the balance. Is very important. Um, so that is the sutra, that is the discourse all about. So when Buddha answered that question to the deity, she was so happy, saying that after a long time I found the proper spiritual being, you know, perfect spiritual person, and then she vanished right there, according to this discourse. She was happy to hear these words from the Buddha. That means she got the point. She learned the necessary teachings from him. So that's the end of the sutra, the discourse. Do we have any question? Any thought? Yes.
You have to find the right balance.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's balance is different.
Yes.
So how does one find their own individual balance
Right.
that works for them specifically?
Right. Yeah, as you said, it can be different from person to person, right? Because we all are different, right? Having different energy, right? Different skills, different potentials, right? We all are living even in different environments. So it can be totally different. So therefore, we cannot simply judge someone's effort even, right? Easily, because we all are different. So therefore, it would be very important for us as individuals to come up with our proper level of this right effort, right? But how do you know that? As you asked that question, right? How do you know your proper effort? If it is enough, if it is healthy, right? So you need to think about these two terms especially, right? So you need to become conscious about your level of effort, right? Being very mindful, conscious about your practice, you know. You need to think that, am I doing enough? Can I dedicate more time to it? Or by doing that, will I mess up with things, right? So it's not a simple thing. That's why in the Dhamma it is always explained that right effort should always go with the right wisdom. You know, proper understanding our wisdom should lead our effort. Otherwise, you can put your effort to a harmful, negative thing, right? That's the function of the wisdom, the proper understanding. So that really balances out everything, right? What do you think? Any thought? Yes.
So if I'm frustrated by something and I can't seem to find the balance,
Mm-hmm.
I can't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to do is withdraw from it,
Mm-hmm.
and then I feel like I've failed.
Mm-hmm.
Is the withdrawal a right view,
Mm-hmm.
or am I still missing it somehow?
Right. That's a good question actually. That can be different from person to person too, right? I mean, you can withdraw from that experience in different ways, right? You can withdraw from that situation, that person, that experience with anger even, with frustration, with a lot of anxiety and unhappiness. So that's the wrong attitude actually. It can be very harmful too, right? It can make the situation worse even, you know. But I like that word withdrawing. It's very important. Like if you can simply look at it objectively, right? The difficulty, the biggest problem for people that you become easily part of the problem, right? You become a part of the suffering, the negativity. So then you cannot find the way out, right? As the first initial step, if you can step back, right? If you can objectively look at the situation, So it can be a very powerful and it can be very productive step actually to find the balance, in a frustrating situation, right? But it depends on how you withdraw, with what intention, in what situation you are doing it, right? Uh,
That could also lead to detachment too, though, couldn't it? Depending on your attitude,
right,
which
exactly.
is very
Yes,
important.
yes,
for
yes.
teaching.
Yeah.
I,
It is important to think that how you detach it,
Mhm.
how you detach yourself from it, positively or negatively, right? You can do it either way,
Mhm.
but negative way can be harmful too, That's how people develop sometimes anger, hate for situations, people, relationship, like that. But you easily learn, I mean, not easy, you learn to let go with love and compassion, with patience, with respect. So that type of non-attachment is helpful and healthy too. So a lot of understanding needs to be there, you know. Yes.
yeah, I think if, my idea that if you go to the root cause for the depression or anxiety, then you will find you are involved there, so you can not just withdraw because of not because of fear, but you can understand. It doesn't matter to me like that. I guess it's like if you go to the root cause, I think because you have anxiety, fear, or depression, because you are involved there. So if you think it is not your ego, if you take the ego out, then like say somebody scolded me. So if it hurts me because I think it's me, right? If I
Again, it's the self
Yeah.
identity.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm. So how you involve in that situation with that condition?
So if you don't
Mhm.
if you don't accept that word, then it's gone.
So if someone is scolding me and I don't accept it personally,
Exactly. I mean,
How can you do that?
yeah, exactly.
That's the question, right?
Mhm.
I think that is the practice we do.
Yeah.
that we
I
learn
mean,
here,
to
right?
be in such a level, what type of practice, condition, quality we should be having, right? I mean,
I mean,
so that can be really frustrating, irritating for someone, right? But if you can really, going back to that initial topic of stepping back, withdrawing yourself from the situation, not just reacting to what you hear. If you take a moment to think about what is it, what is being happening here, right? Observing what is happening in yourself as a reaction, why am I responding to this or reacting to this, right? What is the point? Is this relevant? Did I really did this mistake? If not, as he said, there's nothing to worry, you can easily let go. But the normal attitude is not like that, right? We just want to react to it. We just want to attack that person, or verbally or physically, because of the ego, we don't want to get hurt. We don't want to get criticized, blamed, scolded, right? So, so that is all about being mindful. Every condition, positive spiritual condition, is going to be helpful there, to protect our inner peace and harmony. So that's all about our practice. That's how all these things are going to be helpful actually. Little by little, we need to learn somehow how to incorporate these things into our daily life, in real life situations like that. Mhm.
Sometimes I feel when you're not getting too involved and step back, people get confused.
Mhm.
Because the usual thing is to say something and say something, no,
Right,
no, no,
right.
no, that's
Yeah.
not the way.
So they want you to get involved
They
and
want us
react,
getting
right?
involved. And sometimes
Yes.
it is hilarious to just
Mm.
step back and watch.
Right.
They themselves make a big mess. And you don't say anything, you just step back
Right.
and watch.
Yeah.
And later on you can explain,
Mm.
you did this,
Yeah. But if
I
you,
can't
the,
control, I just
Right.
just watch.
but importantly, if you actually respond to such a situation like that, peacefully, sometimes the other person begins to think, You know,
Especially
sometimes
when
you can change the situation.
Especially when you're driving, I think everybody, it happens to everybody, somebody, either we accidentally cut in front of somebody and then they try to, so do them, or they might cut in front of or something we
Right.
unknowingly, so if you just let him go, so no problem. Sometimes they
Right.
start,
Yes.
other people, they start road rage and shooting and end up with a mess.
Right, you can make a big deal out of it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let go and stay healthy and peaceful. It's our choice. Any other question? So let's learn about these 4 Oghas, 4 dangerous forces of these dangerous floods, as the sensuality, the wrong views, the attachment for the existence, and the ignorance, and how to cross over this dangerous flood or the river as the spiritual path. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, and all blessings to you.